with the biggest engine with a 4-barrel with a torque flight. And then in 60, we bought a Phoenix 2-door hardtop with no air conditioning and no power steering, with the 383 with positive traction with a long ram that stuck all the way out over the edge. And those were the first high-performance cars that were sold from Dodge right off the showroom floor.
Those were the days. We were driving down the highway after the race, going back home. My wife and I drove over in that 62 Dodge. We were running along about, I guess 75, 80 miles an hour in it, just cruising. And this Ford pulls up beside of me, some kind of a trick. What would have been a trick Ford in 62?
406. That sounds good.
Okay. It had to be something.
There was 409, we was 413.
He pulls up beside that Dodge, and he goes to pass, and I just stepped down on him just a little bit. Now, remember, it has a 331 gear in it, and it just kind of kept him right there. And I wouldn't let him go by, but I wouldn't go way out in front of him. It just kept him on this divided highway. We had two lanes going side by side. And the speedometer was just down as far as it was. I think it had about 120 mile an hour speedometer, and it was just down there, And finally, I could tell he didn't have much more left in it. It was just about flat out, and I would still have a lot of throttle left.
Yeah.
And I stepped down on that Dodge, put it right on the floor, and it went into the second stages on those carburetors. And I looked in the mirror, and it was black marks following me on the concrete highway. He must have been really surprised because no one hardly knew they even made a car like that at that time.
What we used to do on the Long Beach Freeway is once in a while, a long time ago, we'd race these areas of the freeway that weren't totally completed. We'd pull on the freeway, and I don't recommend that today because there's too crowded.
Coletta and I used to do that with fuel dragsters on I-94 before they completed it.
And Chevrolets would pull up alongside of us. We'd sort of pop the hood a couple of times. We'd take off. When they got flat out, we'd just go on off. They'd go off the next exit.
We had this race over at MacDill Field. That's the Strategic Air Command base, and the colonel out there built some clocks, and he used to let us come out there and make time runs, not racing against anybody, but you could get ET and mile per hour, and none of our strips had all of that in those days. We just either had mile an hour or ET. No one had that dual timing. So I'm out there with the flathead dragster making runs. It was running like 108 miles an hour, 12.5. And I break the transmission in, and I can't time trial it anymore. So I told my wife, I think I'll just time trial that Chrysler Cuda. So I took that thing down through the quarter. It ran 114 miles an hour in 14 seconds flat, and I thought, we better get that engine in the dragster right now.
Good thinking.
Of course, that's where we got Swamp Rat 1. Built that chassis that you see parked back there. It was in '56, and that was the beginning of the Chrysler era for me. Why the Swamp Rat? Well, this is the car that got the name Swamp Rat for me, and it all came about through a man in Detroit who was racing fuel dragsters and was a big, fierce competitor in those days. His name was Seto Pastorian. He had some of the fastest Chrysler dragsters in the country, but the strips really liked the sound of that, Garlitz and Pastoy in match racing. So they would book us to race, but they didn't want to give him the same amount of money they gave me, and he wrote this ad in Drag News that said, "It's no wonder they call you Swamp Rat." And it was just something to get the money up. But I liked it. It was a cute name, and so I painted it on my car, and I used it. And all my dragsters have been Swamp Rats since then.
In those days, they didn't have no Christmas trees. You had a flag with a red button, so you was allowed one jump. Hayden Prophet, they would come up and say, now let's not jump each other. Let's just come up and race. So it came down between me and Hayden. So he said, he come up, put his arm around the shoulder, says, yeah, man, let's not do anything tonight. Let's just go up there and come up and just race like gentlemen. So I said, fine, I'm easy. So he come up there, boom, he jumps out. So, hey, that gives me a jump. But I knew that if he jumped about 3 or 4 times, it twist the axles on those Chevrolets, those 409s. So, the guy came back up, he lined us up again, and we're all, really rare and ready to go. So I jump out on him. And when we staged to go, he broke an axle. But, I ran 12.14, he ran 12.15, he ran 117.01 or 2, I ran 116.88, so it would have been a heck of a race. But as it was, he said, hey, don't jump, so I didn't, but he did, then I did, and it was too late for him. Big Daddy can top that one, here you go.
There's been no gentleman in drag racing, you knew that. You already told you that he was going to snooker you.
I was always easy, though. I was raised on a farm, I stood in the shade of the tree till late in the afternoon.
Got to give credit where credit's due. Don Garlits climbs into a 35-year-old piece of machinery that is a classic in itself. It's got a single-speed truck transmission, 1 gear, 2 slicks as the clutch, 8 Stromberg carburetors on top of a 500 cubic inch old engine. No fire jacket, a pair of jeans, single hoop roll cage, jumps in, goes 990 at 160. Incredible.
It was built in 1956 in my garage.